Hey everybody, welcome back to the Conserva Nerd YouTube channel. This is the channel where we love God, we love our country, and we love all things nerd. And I just got out of seeing Avatar: Fire and Ash tonight, so let's talk about it. Just a quick reminder, guys, that we're always talking about nerd stuff on this channel, like movies, video games, comic books, all that kind of stuff. So if you're into that, jump down, hit that subscribe button, and hit that little notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. All right, so let's talk about Avatar: Fire and Ash. And don't worry, there's going to be no spoilers in this video, so you are safe. First off, let's talk about the positives. Of course, this movie looks gorgeous. I mean, this thing might be one of the most beautiful films I have ever seen in my life. I mean, do we expect anything less from Avatar movies at this point? There were many times throughout the film where I had to mentally remind myself that I was watching animated characters. That's how good this movie looks. The water scenes, the flying scenes, the battle scenes, all of them are top tier visuals. And at this point, I don't really see how other movies have any excuse anymore about having poor visual effects. Because if they could achieve half of the realism that this movie presents, they would be winning Oscars for best visual effects. Okay, now let's talk about the performances. All of the actors bring their A game. And you want to know how I know that? Because I felt every emotion come through their performances, even through that digital makeup and digital costumes. That's not easy. There are a lot of dramatic moments in this film, a lot more than I expected. Dramatic moments about dealing with loss and grief, and some parts get pretty heavy actually. And I didn't quite expect for this movie to get as deep as it did. There's also a lot in the story regarding faith and how important it is to stay true to your faith even in times of crisis. There's actually a lot of very strong and what I believe to be Christian symbolism within the story. And whether the filmmakers meant for it to be that way or not, I still noticed it and I appreciated it. And that brings me to what I thought was the best part of the movie, the Fire Na'vi. These guys are legitimately terrifying, especially their leader, Varang, played by Una Chaplin. She stole every scene that she was in, and she has a monologue about halfway through the movie that was really unsettling, and it made me really believe her motivation. And with this film's strong emphasis on faith, the Fire Na'vi kind of are the representation of what happens when you fall out of your faith and turn your back on God, which I do not think that it is a coincidence that the element that represents this tribe is in fact fire. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the negatives. This first one might be kind of a nitpick specific to me, I don't know, but I wish that the Fire Na'vi had been more front and center as the villains of the movie. This was kind of a surprise to me because they're not the main villains of the movie. The humans, or the sky people, are still the main villains of the film. I kind of wish that we had started to transition away from the human antagonists and let the Fire Na'vi take over as the main antagonists of this chapter. To be honest, they're not in the movie as much as you might think, or at least it felt that way to me, and I really wish that wasn't the case. My second negative is going to be the runtime. The 3.5 hour runtime, to me, it just seems a bit self-indulgent. I noticed plenty of scenes that could have been cut shorter in order to save on time. Now, I'm not saying that this movie was slow, because it's not, or that it drags anywhere, because it doesn't. This movie actually has a really good pace to it, and I was locked in for about 90% of it. But at a point, I did start to think to myself, okay, my behind is starting to hurt sitting in this theater chair. How much longer before I can get up? Not because the movie was bad, but because I can only sit in one spot for so long. To me, there are very few movies that can justify having a 3-hour or more runtime. Movies like The Lord of the Rings or Gone with the Wind, which Gone with the Wind had an intermission, and I am in full support of bringing back intermissions if movies are going to start being 3.5 hours plus all the time again. The last negative that I want to mention is a story beat involving the character of Spider. There are two interesting things that happened to him in the story that were actually shown in the trailer, so I'm going to talk about them in detail here. The first thing that happens to him is he gains the ability to breathe the air on Pandora. So he becomes the only human that can do this. I said to myself, that's pretty cool. I can get behind that, and they do a pretty good job of explaining the reasoning behind it so that I could get on board. However, one other thing happens to him. He starts to grow one of those Navi hair braid things that allow them to connect with all the animals and such. That took it a bit too far for me. Now, there is a moment in the story where Spider having this ability does become important, so I understand it from a writing standpoint, but it doesn't make it any less weird for me, so I think that I would have preferred them leave that story bit out of the movie altogether. With all that being said, I really enjoyed the movie. I had a great time in the theater watching it. I think it's a worthy addition to the series. And I think I'd probably say it's my second favorite in the series, right behind Way of Water. So all in all, I think I'm going to give Avatar: Fire and Ash a solid 4 out of 5 stars. It was a great theater experience despite the long runtime, and even though I didn't see it in IMAX because I really wanted to, but I refused to pay for 3D. I won't say it's good enough to see it again in the theater, but I definitely think you should see it at least once. Because these movies are designed to be seen on the biggest screen possible, and you do kind of start to lose something as the screens get smaller and smaller. Anyway, guys, it's time to tell me what you think. Did you have a chance to see Avatar: Fire and Ash in the theater? What did you think about it? How would you rank the Avatar movies now that we have 3 of them? Let me know in the comments section below. Also, do me a favor and hit that like button while you're down there. It really helps out the channel and I would greatly appreciate it. That's all I've got for now. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, keep gaming and keep praying.